What up, what up? It's your boy, Dr. Cowfish, PhD, and welcome back to another Ants Canada reaction video. Today, we're going to be running parts 3 and 4. Part 3 is a little short, so I'm going to run it through to part 4. Say hi, YouTube, bro. If you want to watch these reaction streams live, come check me out on Twitch, alright, at Cowfish TV. Alright, of the Vivarium Ants Canada series W Ants Canada, make sure you leave him a subscribe, brother, and leave me also a subscribe, bro. That'd be nice. Spread the subscribes around. The Ants Canada Vivarium series.
I'm doing it. I am creating the ultimate ecosystem vivarium in an over 1,200 gallon custom built tank. This ecosystem vivarium will be the biggest terrarium build I've ever done in my life. Complete with living ant colonies of mine, an array of tropical plants, fungi, predators, prey creatures, parasites, detritivores, and a waterfall and pond. Animals will be breeding and dying. They'll be eating plants. Animals will be eating other animals. And some will be breaking down dead animals to help fertilize plants. In a constant biological cycling of nutrients throughout the vivarium, much like it happens out in nature. But managing such a food web is no easy task. And this vivarium project has honestly already forced me to apply all my skills. And
how does he manage so many different tanks and species of animals at the same time? Probably spends his entire day managing all of these.
Knowledge on animal husbandry, ant keeping, and biology that I've acquired over my entire lifetime. But you guys, the AC family, my beloved community of ant and nature lovers who watch this channel, have already been such a wealth of knowledge and supremely helpful at giving me advice on this undertaking. And this week, I ran a poll on my community tab asking, if you were to create the ultimate ecosystem vivarium, who would your apex predator be? The choices were a python, a chameleon, a tokegecko, and a tarantula. And based on over 60,000 votes, you guys voted for python, then tokegecko, followed by chameleon, and last, tarantula.
Why didn't the tarantula get any love, bro? What? Yo, Hawk, stop being so toxic. He's like 12 years old, dude.
Spurred a huge debate in the comment section. One person said, so many votes for python, but do you have any idea what it'd take to sustain one? They can't exactly live off insects and other invertebrates in an enclosed ecosystem. This was true. I would still love to see a tokegecko, another said. A chameleon is much more fitting, as it would not be attacked by the ants, could contribute to maintaining their population balance, but wouldn't directly attack them, said another. Tarantula seems the most balanced for other small animals around it. Will be in one place a majority of the time and not need to eat everything it sees.
Bro, I agree, bro. I think the tarantula's the best one. Those absolute goobers in the polls voting for the other ones, bro. A python, his name is Ants Canada, and they voted for an animal that doesn't even need ants.
Someone postulated, which, if you know tarantulas, could for the most part also be true. But what most people in the comment section insisted was this. Have to say, I'd rather see some smaller predators competing for resources than some OP apex predator just dominating. Smaller predators meaning frogs, smaller geckos, spiders, mantids, etc. Well, what if I told you that actually there is a way to house all of these apex predators and even the smaller predators in our ultimate ecosystem vivarium?
All of them?
But dear fellow animal lovers, don't scream at me yet, as I've had time to think this through, and I can't wait to share with you how I plan to do this. This is part 3 of creating an ecosystem vivarium, where I will have to manage the great food web that exists within the 4 glass walls that will make up our enclosed tropical world. Will we be able to build the ultimate ecosystem vivarium? Will all the creatures we choose to place inside form a successful ecological balance? Or will we fail at managing the food web and cause a complete collapse of the ecosystem we hope to build? It's time we talk about our final plans and discuss. Welcome to the story of how we build the ultimate ecosystem vivarium here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel.
He could potentially introduce the wrong species of like animal or even just the wrong plant and it would nuke the whole build. Managing the food web in my ecosystem vivarium. Yo, the series being called Tales from the Antiverse is big brain, bro. Alright,
First, I want to address how I plan on working
10 out
out
of 10.
having a python, a tokay, a chameleon, a tarantula, and other predators in a
All
single
of them?
tank, and it favoring an ecological balance within our vivarium. AC family, you will love this. And if you've already posted a comment against mixing all these animals together, please do leave it up in the comment section. But feel free to edit it if you change your mind by the end of this explanation. Alright, so let me start by defining what exactly I mean when I say we are creating the ultimate ecosystem vivarium. What does that actually mean? Well, have a look at this. This here is a terrarium I created a few years back in a jar. Now this particular terrarium in a jar was created for an ant colony, but even without the ant colony in it, this terrarium contained living plants, mosses, and a bunch of critters in its bioactive soils, like springtails and isopods. I could have completely sealed the whole thing up, and it would have been able to sustain itself and all the life inside
I
it
wanted
for
to do
years
this
and
challenge.
years without me doing anything but giving the entire system some sunlight. The water would just continue to cycle inside the jar, animals would breed, feed, and die, and plants grow, get eaten, and also die. The entire system would be a mini, self-sustaining ecosystem in an enclosed space.
That's
Some of
exactly
you
what a
may recall
vivarium is.
this terrarium, where I created a very bioactive forest floor around a tree stump. This was also created for an ant colony, but just like the jar terrarium, I could have sealed this terrarium up completely, and it would have thrived without my interference for years, with sunlight being its only requirement from the outside. But AC family, because both these worlds later became homes for an ant colony,
Bruh.
they no longer could be sealed
Yo, he couldn't help it. He couldn't help it. He had such a beautiful specimen of nature. He created two self-sustaining ecosystems, and this absolute goober poured ants into them. Yo, he's living up to his name, bro.
up completely because the ant colonies would need extra food that the systems within could not provide, namely a regular supply of prey insects like crickets or roaches and some sweet foods like honey. Yes, technically prey insects could breed inside, but the prey insects would eat up all the plants within the system and need more plant food to survive. So I would need to go in and add veggies or more plants into the system for the prey insects to eat. Plants take time to regenerate their leaves and grow. And if you know crickets or roaches, for example, you know how quickly they can demolish a piece of lettuce. Suddenly,
don't
the
know roaches like
ecosystem
that, Mr.
isn't
Ants. I
autonomous
don't.
anymore. It's heteronomous because we're going in and adding in a few things to keep the animals we need alive. So you see, the simple
This is
act
unethical.
of adding a larger creature or creatures, like an ant colony, necessarily takes an autonomous ecosystem vivarium up to the next level, a heteronomous ecosystem vivarium. And the more creatures you add, and the larger these creatures are, the more heteronomous the system gets. And so, as it relates to our ultimate ecosystem vivarium, which we hope to stock with an enormous amount of life forms for the purposes of our project, it must absolutely be a heteronomous ecosystem and not a completely sealed autonomous ecosystem with no influence from us humans from the outside.
So he
If
is
we
gonna
tried
feed
to
them.
make our massive vivarium with all its various animals an autonomous ecosystem, it would surely lead to a ton of animals dying and an overall death apocalypse for so many life forms, as the sealed system would achieve its own simpler balance to make up for the lack of provisions from us on the outside.
But then how is it a vivarium? I'll have to look that up, bro.
Plants would be overeaten, certain animals might overpopulate, certain animals might exhaust food supplies, and the entire system would collapse. So what does all this have to do with being able to add all those different apex and smaller predators mentioned at the start of the video into our vivarium? Well, now that we've distinguished an autonomous ecosystem vivarium versus a heteronomous ecosystem vivarium, here's where the plan for our vivarium gets really interesting. AC family, listen to my idea.
What's your idea, bro? What could you possibly have come up with, bro? Because something's gonna nuke your entire idea. So there's
So
gonna
I
be a
wanted
spider
the
that eats
aim of our
everything.
Vivarium project to essentially be to construct a 1,200-gallon chunk of wild tropical forest space, meaning a 10-foot long by 33 inches deep by 6-foot tall block of natural wild space. Now, if you were to go outside into any forest and block off that section of natural space, the amount of life concentrated into that space may be a lot with various plants and animals, but what are the chances that a python and a tokegecko and a chameleon and a tarantula and a bunch of smaller predators all share that space? All
No, bro. The pythons are just gonna eat all this lizard, bro. He can't put that snake in there. He can't put that snake in there. Come on.
at once? Well, realistically, pretty slim,
It's
right?
literally eating
Most
a
large
lizard.
predators in nature are more spread out, claiming their own hunting space and chasing off
Did
any
he
other
eat another
similarly
lizard?
sized animals
They're
who might
eating each
compete
other?
for the same food. So, AC family, after thinking about all of your feedback and what you guys
Frickin'
wanted to see in our
reptiles.
vivarium, I've come up with a cool way in which we can all have the best
Sit
of
down.
all worlds. Here's where I introduce you
Okay,
to my concept of planned biological events. So listen to this. Going
Fortnite
back to the
events?
block of natural space, if we were to watch a time lapse of that space, we would inevitably see a ton of action, ever changing and dynamic. We would see animals and insects coming and going, random plants dying and being eaten,
That's true.
plants growing from new seeds, sprouting from the soils, etc. The various life forms in that block of space would not be static and simply limited only to that 1,200-gallon worth of space, like an autonomous ecosystem, but would be constantly coming and going into that space as animals move in and out, and plant
Exactly.
seeds are carried by winds to grow and die,
Okay.
thereby bringing in and taking away nutrients to the
But you
system,
can't do that
with
in a
all
tank.
living things in the space interacting, much like a heteronymous ecosystem. So going back to our great vivarium, I think for all of this to work, we as the caretakers need to schedule planned biological events in order for the ecosystem to thrive. Such events can include, for instance, spontaneously dropping in a piece of fruit, which theoretically could have fallen from the treetops
What kind of freaking event is that? Addition of fruit.
above for vivarium creatures to feed on. If certain plants were to die off due to being overeaten by herbivores, we would need to simply plant new plants within the tank. Periodically, we would need to go into the system like this to add things in order to keep it going. And the coolest part? These biological events we make happen don't only have to be with fruits and plants, but can also include the actual animals. See where I'm going with this?
Okay, okay,
So
okay. Yes,
how can
yes,
we
yes,
work
yes,
it out
yes,
so
I
that we can
see.
add our python, a tokegecko, a chameleon, and a tarantula into our ecosystem vivarium without wreaking havoc on our ecosystem? Well, just add them in at different times, meaning we cycle the apex predators.
That is pure torture. No, that's pure torture. They're basically adding a new Elden Ring boss for the ants every once in a while. He's gonna switch out the final boss to a different apex predator. Bro, imagine being the ants and having to learn to like not get eaten by this gigantic snake just for you wake up in the morning and there's a freaking spider now, bro. What the hell?
Could have my 9-year-old green tree python Valentino living in our ecosystem
Valentino?
vivarium for 3 months, where he could only eat mice, which I would need to throw in once or twice a month. The skin he would shed and the poop he would excrete while living
Bro.
inside would be amazing nutrient-dense food for the soil creatures, which would then go on to poop and enrich the soils with bioavailable nutrients for
Okay,
growing
okay.
plants within the vivarium. Then, whenever we want, we could simply move him out and move in a tokegecko, which would hunt prey insects who've had some time to proliferate in the vivarium, simply due to the fact that Valentino wouldn't eat insects the whole time he was in there. The toke would now have a feast on prey insects and might even pick off any small predators that failed to hide in the terrarium, like spiders,
Wait.
other small lizards, and frogs.
That's
Then when we
actually
feel he'd done
smart.
his job at consuming a significant supply of prey animals, we'd move him out and move in a chameleon, which would feed on just insects and nibble on plants. If ever we feel the plant life was suffering, we could add in more plants or offer vegetables on the forest floor for the chameleon to
Okay,
eat. Or if we felt the prey animal populations were suffering, we could also add more of those. These planned biological events would mimic the natural movement in and out of animals and plants that would typically occur in nature in our theoretical 1,200-gallon natural wild space. Finally, after some time, we can swap out the chameleon with a tarantula, which would usually stick to a burrow location and wait for prey to come to it, and also not eat once filled for possibly weeks, which would give prey animals time to replenish. We could
Spiders can go weeks without eating? No, that's a power, bro. Now that's a superpower. But I like this idea though. They're gonna have like ant battle passes with different ant seasons, and there's gonna be a different ant final boss on the map to where it changes around the meta, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, like if it's the spider route, bro, you can't be like exploring too much. You can't be exploring too much because if you go into his, then he's just gonna eat you versus like the gecko probably gonna be going and exploring everything, hunting down everything. You know what I'm saying?
even add in a weaver ant colony to dominate the vivarium for a bit, and then just cut their nest plant out whenever we wanted or felt they were eating too much or growing too big. The possible apex predators that could have a turn in our vivarium are endless, so long as they're easy to catch once their time is up. So you see,
Bro, he's shown this blue lizard so many times, Mr. Gamid. If he doesn't add a Mr. Gamid, if he doesn't own this lizard, and he's been using the same shot of this damn lizard over and over and over, I'm gonna crash out, bro.
we as the ecosystem caretakers must play God a little bit and study what's happening in our vivarium. Take a regular inventory of plants and animals so we can be able to determine what the next oncoming biological event must be. Kind of like tending to a garden, using animals and plants as our additives and takeaways. Addition of things into and taking things out of our vivarium would be intentional and with purpose. At least in this way, we can have all our apex predators taking a turn in the vivarium, while also having other smaller predators roaming the tank, and having some sort of ecosystem happening within that resembles a food web. It's definitely more work than an autonomous ecosystem, but for me, it's 1,000 times more rewarding to watch all the different things that occur when we routinely add and take away organisms to the system. We also don't have to give all apex predators equal time in the vivarium. For instance, if our tokay gecko looks like it's eating all other frogs and small house geckos in the tank, we can simply remove it after a day or two to preserve our house gecko and frog population. While other more steady apex predators that don't need a ton, like our python or tarantula, can stay a bit longer. We will just have to be the active managers of the food web in our vivarium. Oh,
But if he's actively counting, he's gonna keep inventory of all the different species and ants and animals and everything, and then constantly be rotating new predators in there. How autonomous is he really getting this project to be, though? How autonomous is the project really gonna be if he keeps messing with it? I wonder how often he's planning on doing these events. I guess is my next question. Because if he does it constantly, there's no autonomy to it whatsoever.
and by the way, when our apex predators aren't in their grand vivarium, they would be living in their own separate enclosures, kept simply as our beloved pets in the ant room, as normal. So what do you guys think about this idea? The natural world is intrinsically biodiverse, so I figured so too should our ecosystem vivarium, right? And this was my solution to make it work. But now I ask you guys, do you think this system will work? Let me know in the comments. Now there is one predator that a lot of you guys really wanted to see.
I think it could work. I think it could work. I guess, like I said, my question is just, what is he trying to accomplish? I don't know, bro. I feel like he added too many variables. I feel like he's explained too many variables, but maybe I'm overthinking it.
Added into our ecosystem vivarium, which I initially thought was an awesome idea, but I later realized was actually a bad one. I'm so sorry to say this, guys, but for those of you wanting poison dart frogs in the system, I've come to the decision to never add these into our vivarium.
No.
And the reason is this. These poison dart frogs, for which there are 175 known species, each with their various vivid and gorgeous colors, are named after the toxic mucus they produce in the wild that is potent enough to kill several humans. But in captivity, they're deemed safe because they don't end up producing the same toxins as their wild counterparts. The toxins that wild dart frogs produce is said to come from the specific ants, termites, and beetles that make up their diets in their natural habitats.
Whoa.
In captivity,
Wait, I would drop fishy in that vivarium. I would get eaten by the lizards, bro. What the hell? You want me to get eaten by lizards? Dude, I didn't know dart frogs make their toxins out of their diet. So they eat the more like stinky and like poisonous bugs that they eat, the more poisonous they'll be. That's crazy, bro. I did not know that. So then, like you said, dart frogs in your own, like, what is that called when they're not in the wild? In captivity? They don't produce as much poison because they just eat like normal stuff.
we hobbyists feed them crickets and or fruit flies, which don't possess the components that form that said poison. Though we humans aren't sure which dart frog food item in the wild leads them to being so deadly, ants is one of the suspected contributors to their poison. And well, our vivarium will definitely be home to some ant colonies. So do you see where I'm going with this? I don't want to find out if the ants we put in cause our captive raised poison dart frogs to become poisonous and have one of the frogs land on my hand, which may have a little scrape from working around the tank, and me.
That would be my luck, bro. That's funny, bro. There's probably like a million variants of ants, and he's gonna put the frog in there with like 3 different species of ants, and it's just gonna be his luck. Boom, poisonous frog. That'd be some like unlucky RNG for real, for real. We genuinely don't know as humans which ants do it.
Dying a painful death. Knock on wood, no thank you, not worth it. Plus, if we have apex predators like a python, tokay, or tarantula in there, I don't want them to be eating a $30 to $70 dart frog, only for them to also die. Not the most financially sound biological event management.
Yo, what the hell? He's talking about him in money terms for, bro. He's naming the frog by price. Yo, that's a frog life, bro. What are we talking about?
In our vivarium, if you ask me. So sadly, sorry dart frog fans, but we'll just have to create another dart frog terrarium one day.
Okay.
But I do feel our ultimate ecosystem vivarium has a lot of potential for us to learn and gain insight on the workings of real wild ecosystems and on how ants.
Why is this so spicy? That's what they're gonna do. They eat a frog, bro. That's what the python would do. Imagine the python would just eat one dart frog, and he's gone. AntsCanada wakes up one day. The snake is just, and he's like, "Bro, I spent $300 on that snake."
Fit into the ecological picture of things. Like, don't you wonder what would happen if we dropped a dead animal into our ecosystem?
That's the bird. That's the bird. We know you dropped it in here. Wait, you gave spoilers because I talked about this bird in part 1. The feathers on this bird are crazy. You did do this. The ants are gonna eat this. What do you mean if? What do you mean if, bro? He just gave us spoilers, bro.
System terrarium? Would ants come and claim it first to defend it from thieves? Which we always say happens whenever we do ant feeding videos. But now we'd be able to witness them doing it in real life. Would forest roaches emerge from hiding to feed on a piece of fruit we drop in?
Did he travel from the future?
Would that in turn draw in the predators to the scene? What would happen if we threw in a handful of birdseed into the vivarium? Or introduced an army of caterpillars into the system?
Okay, now he's talking about, bro. He was on the right track. Now we're talking about what happens if we drop birdseed. An army of caterpillars.
How about a praying mantis egg case? So many interesting experiments we could do to learn from. And it would be so interesting to watch how our ecosystem vivarium reacts to
Are
these
those
planned
beans? Was he
biological
planting
events
beans? Be
to
honest.
achieve balance. What other cool events could you think of that we could add and watch play out in our vivarium? Let me know
He should just flood the whole thing. Alright, let me chill.
in the comments. It's getting close to the arrival date of our glass, and I love that together we are doing our due diligence, researching, discussing, and collaborating on ideas so that this ecosystem vivarium project will truly be one of a kind and groundbreaking. I actually did it, and I must say, I'm quite proud of the outcome.
Okay. And the last one, he literally said, my glass is coming in. It has the corner for the water, bro. It's over there. Dude, this is bigger than some of the bird cages at Petco.
Within this over 1,000 gallon tank is my magnum opus.
Yo, and he can pause. See it from the back like that? What?
And in my heart, I feel it is one of the greatest things I've ever created in my entire life. I'm going to show it to you, but I must say, constructing it has been an adventure and a half. Full of
Yo, wait, which one of was that ants? Was that ants in there in the video? Why is he low-key built?
twists, turns, heartbreaks, and
Does
triumphs.
AntsCanada
But the
mock
utter
me?
biological beauty of it all made it worth the journey. In celebration of recently hitting 5 million subs on this channel, this new tropical world of ours, within glass, will serve us a very special purpose in the world of science. And I'll explain how it all came together in this crazy story of how I created a living, mist-breathing cloud rainforest
A cloud
within glass.
rainforest.
Part 4 of my Ultimate Ecosystem series, which I dedicate to all of you. Welcome to the AntsCanada Ant Channel.
Building a giant cloud rainforest vivarium. W Tales from the Antiverse. You want said to replace your $100 bill? Why said? What did said do? What did said doing?
Enjoy. I knew creating a giant cloud rainforest vivarium,
WAntsCanada,
incorporating a ton
WAntsCanada.
of tropical animals, plants, bacteria, and fungi was no easy task. I mean, I'm no god, but as your creator of worlds on this channel, I knew successfully pulling off an ecosystem terrarium, which was the main objective of this giant cloud rainforest build, would require me to apply all the knowledge and experience I've acquired over a lifetime, beyond just ants, but of biology, animal husbandry, terrarium building, aquaria,
Animal
etc.
husbandry.
So even prior to the actual building of the tank unit, I had been studying and planning non-stop, dare I say obsessed, day and night, to make sure all
Okay,
details
fishy, give
of this
me
rainforest
100.
build were covered.
I don't even got 100 to give you.
If you haven't seen the past 3 episodes of this series, which was largely a research phase and a crowdsourcing of your ideas, I've placed the playlist link in the description so you could check out those episodes after watching this episode. My heart was racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. This was it. No more planning now. It was time to execute and build
Hey,
the
let's
ultimate
go.
vivarium.
He's actually
Animals and
building
plants
it.
were waiting on standby to be introduced to their new kingdom. Once I was done, my ant tanks had to be moved around in a game of musical ant farms. Volcania, my fire ant setup, had to be drained of water and lugged to an opposite wall.
That sucks. Dude, his volcano one, he had to completely move it because he needed space for the gigantic tank.
Actually liked it better here. The Leviathans, my marauder ants in their dragon setup that used to be there, had to be moved closer to a window. Beside the blades of Midas, my spiny ant setup, my trapjaw ants had to be moved to another window where it looked much neater. Anyway, the base of the setup looked sturdy and was huge. The entire thing was about 10 feet long. Everything
Damn.
would be held together by frames, silicone, and glass. It took the team the entire day to finish it, but when they did, laying eyes on the empty tank in the ant room was such
Oh.
an experience.
Okay.
I've never before had nor designed a
Yo.
tank this huge. Walking up to it was a dream. I was in awe
He
and
does
felt
mug.
like an athlete
Why is he
the night
built?
before the Olympics. I knew all my terrarium building skills would be stretched to their limit with this one. And all culminated to this soul terrarium. Let me show you the specs of this tank. To get in, you have to go through the back via two glass panels which
yes, walk.
swing open.
Bro,
The
look at this
terrarium would
tank.
be housing a lot of life, and I didn't
Bro, I
want
could
things
look like that, bro.
escaping
I
all
gotta
over the
do
place
push-ups.
whenever I needed
gotta
to
do
get in.
push-up, bro.
So this was the best way in my mind. I also wanted a full unobstructed view of the front, so I chose for no doors there. I knew I would be needing some good space at the top for lighting and climate equipment, so I had an upper compartment created to house all the lights and gear. Speaking of climate equipment, I also knew ventilation was key,
I could never
particularly
make
for
this.
the animals I had in mind for
I
the
don't got money
vivarium.
to put all these
So I
animals
had
in
the
my house.
side made with an opening door with mesh for ventilation.
He said the
The
frogs
top
were
of the tank,
$70
of course,
each.
was also mesh. Now, before starting any terrarium build, I always visualize what the final result would look like. I began to trace the general shape of what I wanted the vivarium to look like in my mind. I even drew
What
a
about
sketch
me? I am
several weeks
chatting.
ago of what I wanted it to look like.
Adrian, the last thing you said was Fortnite Sprite Garden Live in TTS.
For me, this visualization phase is imperative before actually building, because it would help inform all my aesthetic choices made during the building process, which you will see later. The tank was empty now, but I could see it, already done in my mind.
Okay, okay. So they're like before and after. So this is day one of building. We're just gonna kind of skip through it a little bit because I'm not gonna lie, we kind of signed up to see the aminos, bro. Terrarium scaping foam. Oh, like landscaping. Okay, okay. So he stuck it all down, made a rock wall. Okay, so he put the rock wall on the right side. He's putting like chicken wire in there, bro. What is he doing
When
here?
cut to size, I began to cover it with dried sphagnum moss using the scaping foam. When it was done,
Oh, that's low-key big brain. So he was sticking the foam to the back of the moss and then sticking the moss onto the grate, like the chicken wire. Okay, okay. Oh, and then he brought in the tree stump. It's a real tree stump, right?
of landscape decor that would steal focus and have everything around it revolve. The star for this tank was this tree stump. In my initial sketch idea, the main star in my mind would be the branches. So for weeks, I kept my eyes open for some interesting looking branches to play that role. That was until I spotted the tree stump.
Why is it scary
It was
now?
in my neighbor's
I don't
front
know.
yard, and I drooled
turned
when
into
I
like a
saw it.
horror
I
movie.
asked my neighbor if I could have it, seeing as it was already dead and was useless.
I'm sorry, but the thought of him knocking on his neighbor's door, like, dum, dum, dum. Hey, what's up, bro? You listen, hear me out. Can I have that tree stump? Bring me that tree stump.
And to my surprise, he said yes. We had to chop it from the
Of
ground.
course he
The
said
thing
yes,
was
bro. What was he
massive,
saving it
so
for
massive
something?
that it actually didn't fit in the tank when we first tried to install it. We each took turns hacking away at the back of it to make it fit. And let me tell you, whatever this wood was, it was iron.
Listen, Mr. Ants, I may not be a professional, right? But I'm pretty sure I've owned a machete or two in my lifetime. Machetes are for plants, bro. And like thin trees. That is not a hatchet. He's chopping wood with a machete. I'm pretty sure that's not what that's for, bro.
Solid. It took forever to chop it to size.
No
Once
wonder.
amply chopped down, we lugged the unwieldy stump into place. The idea was to have it sit a bit higher, so I had a wooden stool ready to become its great throne within the setup. Then I wanted the tree stump to be tilted to the right and leaned up against the moss wall,
Okay.
holding the moss wall in
Wait,
place.
that looks sick.
And there it was, looking so pretty. A tree stump king with its attractive mossy cape ready to steal the show.
Do your own video then. Do my own video of what? Cutting wood with a machete? Stop judging people. That's kind of like my thing, Walk. I'm like a hypocrite, bro. I don't want to be judged, but god damn, am I a judgy person.
I siliconed one side of the moss wall into place and allowed the entire thing to dry overnight. I also siliconed the other side of the water wall. And that was the
I'm a
end of day
perfectionist,
1.
bro.
All silicone needed to dry now before the next
Efficiency
step.
is key.
But little did I know, life would throw an unexpected wrench into our great terrarium building plans. Early
Dun,
the next
dun.
morning, it was the scheduled water test.
Oh, he's
I
gonna
always get
flood
nervous with these
it.
water tests
He's
because
gonna
I've had
flood
bad
it. He's gonna
experiences with
flood
water
it.
walls leaking and have learned to never start
Wait,
a terrarium
imagine
build
it just
with a water wall without first testing that water wall for leaks.
Bro, he got the
and luckily,
Flex Seal.
I didn't start the actual
He got the
terrarium building
Flex Seal on
prematurely
there. It's
because
gonna
what
work
I
then.
spotted
If he got
made my
Flex Seal,
heart
I mean,
drop to my stomach. Leaks. And not just inside
oh,
the
he
tank,
used the Dollar
but
General
also
Flex
outside the
Seal.
tank.
He used
The
the
setup
Dollar
was
General
not
Flex
waterproof.
Seal.
I wasn't sure if it was my fault by not explaining that the tank needed to be waterproof, but perhaps the manufacturer thought
He didn't tell the people building the tank that it needed to be waterproof. And then he's like, why is it leaking water? All right, let me stop judging people, bro. This is a really sick idea, a really sick tank. He put a lot of money and invested into this. I would be sad too. I would be sad too if there was water leaking out of my tank after all this planning and all this time and money that I spent. I would be upset too. So let me chill, bro.
he was building a completely dry
Let me
unit.
chill.
Like the display case wall, I also had them build in my room. But worrying and blaming was too late now. The entire thing was leaking, and leaking bad. I spotted where the leak was. It was an unsiliconed corner. So I removed the water and re-siliconed everything, including that corner, as
More
well as
Flex
the
Seal.
inside and the outside of the water portion. It was good that we spotted the problem, but I had lost a day, as we would need to allow
Is
the
Flex
silicone
Seal
to
safe?
dry before proceeding
Is
with a
Flex
second
Seal
water
safe
test.
for animals?
The next day, I proceeded with the water test. When it was full, I was happy to see that there were no leaks. I placed a tape at the watermark and would have to check back in a few hours to verify that it was indeed
Okay.
leak-free. I came back in a few hours, and this was what I saw. Ah, okay, a little leak
A little
outside the
bit.
tank.
That's not bad.
Inside, no
These
leak,
damn ads,
which was good.
GG
But there was
Abrian.
still a leak somewhere. So once again, I drained all the
Make
water
sure you
out
sub to
and
Dr.
went in
COWFISH for
again
no ads.
to silicone a massive band this time over all joints, corners, and edges.
Okay, but like, for sure he should have just done that from the get-go, no? I feel like he went through a lot of experimentation when, like, if he's putting a lot of this much effort and time, like, he probably should have just done that from the get-go. W gummy fishy emojis.
My guess was that the silicone the company used was not for aquarium use. I've made this error in the past. If any of you guys are building your tanks, be sure to get silicone for aquariums. While waiting for the silicone to dry, I used
It's
this
so
time
hard.
to do
It's so
things
hard
like
not to
clean the
say
glass,
something.
as I knew the moment I started landscaping, it would get harder and harder to properly get in to wipe the glass. The next day, I was ready for the third leak test.
Okay?
Overnight, I had
Come on.
sucked up all the trapped
Third time's
water
the
in the
charm.
brace using paper towels. This was the moment of truth. So many items, tank decor, and plants were waiting on the sidelines for the moment I was
Holy.
ready to build, and I had hoped it would be today. I watched the paper towel like a hawk as the water began to fill up. When the tank was full, I checked the paper towel. No drip. It was dry, and
Let's
this continued for the
go.
next several hours, which to me meant we had passed the leak test, which also meant that now the real fun was about to
Let's
begin.
go. He's gonna start
Whoopee!
building it. Zesty
First,
job,
We
bro.
needed a drainage
You hit the
layer. I used
yippee.
lava rock, and a lot of it. I also used pebble gravel and spread it throughout the tank floor.
Okay. We're back to building. We're back to building. So he put the gravel for the drainage layer. He added. Oh, those are like charcoal, right? To enrich the water for nutrients. Water has to be enriched with nutrients, right? Right. Okay. Some wood too. Yo, that's some nutrient dense water right there. What is this part?
Now we want to give the plants within our vivarium the best chance to thrive. So within this bag was the most potent of stuff. Poop from microbillion, aged for a few
Go,
months,
poop.
mixed with decayed leaves and grass. It stank. But once the stuff starts breaking down and releasing its
he's
nitrogen-rich
building some
compounds
good water, bro. If I was a fish, I would be happy. Okay, so more landscaping. He's putting in all the plants and more wood. What did he do here? Oh, that's the bottom of the water portion. Okay. Dang, so he ended up siliconing the whole bottom of it on the right side here. Just to be safe. That's smart. That would suck if it started leaking water. Whoa, what is this?
Design aquariums, particularly using Japanese or Indonesian techniques and styles. Even though
Indonesian
it's for fish
techniques.
and not land terrariums, in my opinion, aquascapers do nature tanks the best. It also helps to have someone else come in with fresh eyes to give some honest feedback about what looks
Okay.
cool
So he
and
brought
what
in
could
some people
use
to
some
decorate.
adjusting. I continued to scape well into the night. The next
Finishing
morning,
touches.
I got straight to work on vines. Vines, oh vines. I've never
Vines.
had a tank large
Vines. Vines, like what the dog doing? Oh, no, that's actually sick. He put vines all the way across the top so stuff could crawl up there. What is that?
after a total of 5 whole days of working on this tank. This was what the final result looked like.
Ooh, it looks fire. The
You see,
ultimate
family,
cloud rainforest.
Behold, the slice of
big
tropical
reveal.
cloud forest I call Pandora.
Pandora. Pandora. Yo, this is fire. This is fire, fire, fire. So we saw him put everything in. He built the moss wall with the grate and the escaping foam. He got the tree from his neighbor. He decorated using fish landscaping people. And then he put vines across the top after sealing that entire right corner with water for fish.
Now before I show you all the neat and exciting details of this tank as a terrarium build, I want all of us to first become an ant for a second and have an epic
Okay,
exploratory
an ant.
walk
I'll become
through
an
these
ant.
vast territories as a tiny creature for greatest effect. Let's go! Pandora is a magnificent tropical and humid paradise for any jungle creature that might have the chance to walk its mossy soils. With it being a cloud forest, humidity is high, which means heaven for moss, which carpets many areas of this rainforest terrain. Now, if you're having problems seeing things right now, don't worry. It's just while the cloud which blows through here every morning and evening floats through to hydrate the lands. It will be gone shortly. Now, the reason I chose to construct a cloud forest over any ordinary forest is because cloud
I like
forests,
this.
meaning forests
MTV House
usually at the
Quiz.
saddles of mountains that retain a lot of moisture from settling clouds, happen to be among the most
utilities included?
biodiversity-rich ecosystems in the world. Cloud forests are my favorite forests with incredible ecosystems. Hence, Pandora here. Pandora also sports a peaceful waterfall fed from a mountain
Alright, I
spring
got tired of being
that
an ant, bro.
trickles into the opening of an underground
twig
cave
building.
water system. What a world these lands would be for our beloved creatures moving in. All right,
All right. I was an ant. I was an ant. He showed it around. We saw him build it. It looks beautiful.
I have a fan on a timer which turns on to periodically blow fresh air into the setup from the side.
That's
but I'll use that now.
sick. A
The
fan
mist
of the
takes
timer.
a moment to dissipate. And
but the
voila,
mist is still coming in on the
behold
left side.
Pandora after the fog clearing. What do you think?
Sick. So everything's wet. Look at all the dewdrops on the plants. Everything is
So let's
moist.
start with the underground river cave opening.
Ooh.
It's stocked with floating water lettuce, mosses, and fed, as mentioned, from a trickling waterfall from our mossy
That waterfall
and
looks
ornately
so
planted
sick.
rock wall. Oh, and I can't wait to stock this cave water system with aquatic life. I also added a stick to help rescue any animals or insects falling in. They could also grab on to the various banyan roots
Most of it
that
don't
go
drown,
into
bro.
the water. Our cloud forest floor is adorned with carpets of various species of moss. Cloud
Love
forests,
moss.
as mentioned, offer the perfect haven for moss to grow. In fact, cloud forests are also known as mossy forests, seeing as they tend to be abundant in moss growing on the ground and vegetation. I find they look really pretty, give any tank that signature forest feel, and I hope they establish themselves in this tank. Crossing fingers. And what did I say about our star tree stump, huh? It stands
about it?
boldly as a focal point from which the eyes begin to wander.
Bro, we
Hell
saw
up
it
its
as we
mossy
built
wall
it, bro.
over time. Same goes for.
Alright. He's showing off all the little stuff he added, but we saw as he did it. He's showing off like the decorations. What's this?
Let me show you. Behind the mossy wall is mostly space, so creatures can make their way back there and hide if they want.
Oh, okay.
It's also quite
He
humid
did that
back
on
there too.
purpose.
I also allowed for the formation of an underground cave beneath the wooden stool on which
What?
the tree stump sits.
Oh, that
I
stool that
attached
he
the rock
put in
wall
from a
using
minute
long
ago.
brackets so that creatures could wedge themselves into the soft, tighter, mossy areas
In between
behind the
them?
wall, if they so chose. And my personal
Okay.
favorite, this neat cave, which leads into a huge, darkened dome beneath this moss hill. There's
What?
actually a lot of shadowy places and niches
Okay.
creatures could retreat to and occupy. Places for creatures to hide and get away would be important once the various animals begin living together.
So they can't escape
And
from
AC family,
the big predators.
That was when I spotted a tiny movement. Do you see it?
The first animal.
A tiny jumping spider dangled from a thread of its lifeline silk. It looked around these vast lands in awe. I bet it was
What?
introduced here through one of the plants.
Bro has the
Hello, little
presidential
guy.
suite.
Welcome to Pandora. He would have an utter feast of insects to eat very soon. But I think he could feel a slight change in the air, and that something major was coming.
Whoa.
The humid clouds were rolling in again. And AC family, we've already seen the cool clouds of our
time?
cloud rainforest, but it wouldn't truly be a rainforest without
Oh!
Pandora's tropical
Wait, I didn't
montane
even think
climate
of that.
consisted of frequent rain drizzles.
No
Before
way.
escaping, I made sure to outfit the entire setup with an irrigation system.
Yo,
I also
that's
had to modify
sick.
the nozzles a bit, so the rain produced would better mimic
That's why
an
it all had to be
actual cloud
waterproof.
rainforest
I was
shower,
wondering why he
falling
needed the
lightly
whole
as
thing
a sort of
waterproof.
mist, but also as droplets falling from the tall trees high above
That's
the canopy.
sick.
The raindrops fell magically onto our precious clumps of moss below.
Okay.
I love storm watching, and I just loved watching it rain within our cloud rainforest kingdom of Pandora.
That's beautiful.
And that, AC family, was how I built a giant cloud rainforest within glass.
W.
What do you guys think of it? I have honestly been
This
staring
thing
at it non-stop
is
since it was built yesterday,
insane.
and I felt honored to have such a stunning slice of nature that we could look into and visit anytime we wanted within the Antiverse. It made me come to better appreciate the magnificence, the design, the complexity of the natural world and climate. Speaking of climate, I also plan on changing the frequency settings on the fog and rain
Okay,
to
so
mimic
like
the
how
natural
often?
wet and dry seasons through the year. I think it would be interesting
Oh,
to see how the inhabitants
That's
within
sick. He's
Pandora
gonna match it to outside.
react to these changes.
W video, W AntsCanada, WWWs. That was a W react. That was a W react. Alright, YouTube, if you enjoyed this AntsCanada react video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe so you know when I go live again. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.